Oklahoma softball still perfect after leaving the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic. And, well, it's finally here. It's Love's Field time. Who better to break it all down than our resident Sooner softball expert, Alex STORAKO, on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Joined, as always, on Locked On Sooners, Josh Elmer here by Alex STORAKO, Sooner great, and, of course, now a member of the Oklahoma City Spark, and listening to some of her former teammates at times, maybe one of us, right, a media member to some degree, obviously a player as well, though, still. Alex, you got the firsthand fan experience this past weekend. I guess let's start there. You got to go with Pops to the Mary Nutter?
Yeah, I surprised my dad with a trip to the Mary Nutter, just because it's his first season as well as mine without me playing. So I know he's kind of been going stir crazy and just with the softball experience. So surprised him with one of his favorite tournaments last year, and then also mine. So it was a really, really cool experience as a fan. Just kind of taking it all in. I feel like I got to explore a little bit more this weekend, unlike last year. So second year all time at Mary Nutter and first as a fan, and it was unmatched. It was a blast. I had so much fun, and I can only recommend that if Sooner fans are wanting to take a trip maybe early on in the season. Definitely schedule a Mary Nutter trip. It was so much fun.
Well, there's softball talent now more and more all over. But, of course, California for a long time has been a hotbed of softball talent. And I don't think Oklahoma's, I think California is always going to be in the scheduling plan to some degree for Oklahoma softball now and going forward. But what was it like being at Mary Nutter, prestigious event? I think it was the 20th year. What was sort of the fan experience like for you?
It was awesome. Honestly, you get that all around feel. There's a ton of games playing all at the same time. So if you're waiting, if it's backed up on that particular field, you can kind of wander and kind of take in what you want, which I thought was really cool. And I got to see a lot of different teams as well as like UCLA, Nebraska, BYU, UCF, some new Big 12 members. And so kind of that feel was really fun and just kind of it took me back to my travel ball days in a lot of ways, but then also just upping the competition level, obviously. So it was really cool. I got to try out some ballpark food, just the whole deal. It was great. And then just obviously the first time of the year watching Oklahoma play in person, got a little sneak peek before opening up at Love's Field. So that was a blast. And truthfully, some of the first times that I've seen the girls, even though I am in Norman. So funny that I live literally in the same town, but it was actually the one time I get to like spend a little time with them before they can officially like unpack from their bag of the month of February and be home for a little bit too. So it was a lot of fun.
What do you think is the importance for OU, now and into the future, playing this type of, I mean, obviously Oklahoma's had a number of California kids on the roster, but what is the importance of playing in California at an event like the Mary Nutter?
Yeah, I think the just competition that you play is huge, especially for newbies, some transfers, and just freshmen in general. Getting that feel, you have just not only the fan part of it, but then also just the experience of walking in and everyone screaming and getting balls thrown at you to autograph. I mean, it was kind of crazy just seeing that as a fan, how like the Oklahoma craze really is. I know I was along parents and they were kind of comparing it to like the Beatle effect. And that's what it really feels like when you watch Oklahoma walk into the park and just see the sprinting of young players and even parents too, just excited to see the once in a lifetime kind of just talent that Oklahoma softball is. So yeah.
What do you, I know that, yes, we will in fact talk about the results that were for Oklahoma softball, but you got to take part in the Mark Campbell Invitational. You got to take part, obviously, in the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic as well. Some of the feedback that I got from fans and, well, from a broadcaster in Plank is that it's not, in some ways, maybe not even just saying Oklahoma softball, but some of the teams that are there have sort of outgrown the facility in some ways, and that maybe the facility needs to catch up. So, what do you make of the future of the Mary Nutter Classic? And can you speak a little bit to some of the challenges that Oklahoma athletes may have faced when, look, the setup of the actual venue itself, it wasn't built yesterday, shall we say, right? What type of challenges are there at the Mary Nutter, and then what do you sort of see as the future of the event?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is a little bit of the time difference of not only traveling, but also when it gets to those nitty gritty games, and you're scheduled for a late slate like Oklahoma was on Friday, and you get pushed back and pushed back. I know Mississippi State's game started an hour later than scheduled. So when you have teams traveling 2, 3 time zones, and you get that pushed back and you're playing really late, I know that's effect. So I know they want to put out this product of so many great teams, but there comes some consequences in that, when having to push back game time, field readiness. I know as the tournament gets along, just the field, especially the pitcher's mound and maybe batters boxes, get a little bit more worn down, as this is probably the most competed time on those fields. And so when you have something that's maybe just not as great as, college caliber, it's going to wear down. It's going to maybe result in some injuries. It's going to just not have the same kind of play that you might see in a college field. I know that like balls kind of bounced fast. They bounced a little weird. I feel like the Mary Nutter is infamous for just taking a weird hop and a fielder just barely getting their head out of the way before it kind of gets to them. So when you see that kind of effect, it could make or break a game in the result parts of it. So I think that's a big part of it. I really think they do a great job, though, in a lot of different aspects of bringing out vendors, supplying a great product for the fans that do make the trip or come out to the games. I think player-wise, it is hard because you are so accessible to a fan. I know for me, it was really weird warming up in a bullpen that was kind of, I guess, basically the outer warning track of a bigger field, and then having to walk through a crowd to get to the game. So they do their best in that type of security, but it is a little bit difficult and kind of might be distracting in some way, shape, or form. So I know that's a big part of it. I know the bullpen quality is really not there, not even to the field standard. So that can also go into effect when it comes to the differences when you are playing in college and playing in that type of facility. So.
Well, and look, I don't know what the fix is beyond. Hopefully, there's an investment made, right? And you revamp the facilities and continue to add and enhance the facilities. Does it frustrate you in a way as a player being in that venue? Because here you have this amazing thing, and this is not to just sit and pick on the Mary Nutter, but just for the future of the sport of softball. It's this wonderful event, and yet you can see it elevate. Is that frustrating in a way as a player, as a spectator?
I mean, frustrating maybe, but I feel like in the sport of softball, you play and you travel so much and the field quality is never consistent that it's honestly just bringing you back to what really got you there. So I feel like that's also a big part of it too, just being able to adjust on the fly in those types of field conditions. So I feel like that's a big part of it. And it really is hard to replicate when you play at such a big level, especially with the big name programs. They're going to have maybe better field quality. I know Oklahoma last weekend, they went to a full turf field down in Louisiana, and that's an adjustment too. Even though turf is a well-kept, expensive part of a facility, it is a game changer in some way, shape, or form.
Well, let's talk about the results that were, right, which obviously, again, great for Oklahoma, a number of standout performers. Oklahoma, in case you missed it, they were not beaten at the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic. The win streak rolls on. Let's dive into the top performers next, right here on Locked On Sooners. Looking for last-minute tickets in a flash? Well, there's no better place than Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use our code Locked On for $20 off. The Game Time app, it's seriously awesome, people. If you're looking for last-minute tickets to a sporting event, probably if you're like us, that's maybe what you're doing. But concerts, you name it as well. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. You can buy your tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. I'm looking here at the Game Time app as we speak. March 8th, the Oklahoma City playing host to the Miami Heat. $19 tickets. The tickets as low as $19. The Dallas Mavericks on the 14th of March. Tickets as low as $11. And how about the Utah Jazz? Tickets $6, as low as $6 on March 20th right now on the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, take your pick, Alex. You were there in person. What were some of your big takeaways from the OU perspective of this? Obviously, they marched through the event unblemished. They were tested, though. They got a test from Mississippi State and Wisconsin both early. What were your takeaways from the event for OU?
Yeah, you definitely saw a little bit of fight that had to come out within those first 2 games, which I kind of expected. Those 2 were kind of had that difference of the time slate. Like I said, the time zones by the end of both games. I know as a fan, I was exhausted. I think when it all said and done, it was Oklahoma 1:30 time, which is just not normal when it comes to just the grand scheme of it all. So I definitely think that might have had a little bit of play into it, especially when you're sitting around all day waiting for just those type of games, but then also know you just traveled, you're waiting for these bigger games of the weekend. Not only that, but you're also dealing with a delay of the games because of the games prior to you. I think that is a big thing, but I also think too, Kirsten Deal on Saturday really set the tone for the rest of the weekend. She lightened up that pressure within the offense, and I feel like you really saw it explode. So I feel like this weekend was like a short put together of just kind of the relaxation and explosive and offense that I can feel coming from just Oklahoma in general, which makes me even more excited for this upcoming weekend at Love's Field.
What is the closest situation that you were in to what Oklahoma experienced in terms of delays and when the final out was recorded Friday into Saturday?
Collegiately, I honestly couldn't tell you, but I do know in the Midwest within like winter snow and the fall games, we actually grew up playing all night tournaments in like a dome. So like I was 12, 13, 14, and you were playing at 2 a.m. So when I was that young, I did it. But definitely, I don't think I can recall one maybe that was similar to that, unless we go back to the Washington regional I played in 2021, when we had a little bit of a difference in maybe picks for a regional that year. We played a double elimination game against Washington on a Sunday night, and I don't think we got done until close to 2 a.m. And that was Eastern time zone we were coming from as well. So I would say collegiately, that was probably maybe the closest I can think of. But yeah, it had been obviously a while. And I know as a fan, I was worn down and exhausted, especially for that next game on Saturday. So I can only imagine how the players felt.
What is that like? I mean, again, fans, media, we have a general understanding, but you hear the phrasing body clock. You're in the Eastern time zone, right? Or we're in the Central time zone. And now all of a sudden you got to go to the Pacific time zone and it's late and my body still feels like it's Central time zone. What is that challenge like for an athlete?
I think especially with a later game, you're definitely trying to fight and reamp that adrenaline that you've had all day. And obviously, as soon as it's gone, you got to really try to wake it up the longer of a game you go. So that's why it felt like the doubleheader on that late night on Friday to start off the tournament kind of felt like a couple of trap games in the grand scheme of it. I thought the girls handled it well. They answered any kind of matchup that maybe Mississippi State or Wisconsin tried to come up with. And even in the Wisconsin game, they got it all together in that 5th inning. They really put it on them, and they really came out of there victorious and able to defy all the odds, probably.
In the circle, you mentioned Kirsten Deal. What were your other thoughts? How Oklahoma pitched? Nicole May, I thought, responded well after giving up an early home run and another run after that versus Mississippi State. But what did you make of just the pitching start to finish for OU?
I mean, start to finish, I can just see the growth within the pitching staff. I was excited to see that Nicole May got maybe a longer leash than previous years in that Mississippi State game. She really worked through a lot of stuff, and I was excited to see that Coach Casso and Coach Rocha really let her do that. And then obviously I feel like it's been the name of the game in the early seasons where they bring in a closer and all of that. I was excited to see Kirsten Deal really rebound from that opening weekend and have the first Oklahoma 2024 complete game shutout. Was pumped for her and her growth and just her ability to just keep it going in all of it. And then as well as just Carly Keeney, Peyton Monticelli finally getting that experience at Mary Nutter. I feel like the experience just goes for the long run and really adds up when it comes down to all of the close stuff in June.
Kelly Maxwell has been, she's been fantastic for Oklahoma so far. 4 walks early versus Wisconsin. And oh, by the way, if you're keeping track at home, that is half of her walks so far this season. So she's not issuing a bunch of walks, right? But this was kind of that one game where, okay, maybe a free pass here or there. When, if you want to say battling the command or just it's a game where early you give up a couple of walks. You've been in that circle. You've been in between those lines. Where are you at mentally, and what is sort of the fix to, okay, some would say simplistic, hey, throw strikes, right? But what is the fix when you're in that moment?
I think just going back to your core parts of yourself. I know as a fan, I was quite frustrated with a little bit of the zone, and maybe the umpire was kind of confused in some way, shape, or form. And that's me as a fan. And I know I even tweeted out this weekend just shouting out pitcher parents, because as a pitcher friend, I was kind of letting some 2 cents out. So I think that also probably played a role in just the weekend too. I know our hitters kind of felt that maybe moving strike zone throughout games this weekend too. And then as well, going back to Kelly's performance, it was the later night. She's not one to run off of energy because she is so kind of stoic and kind of emotionless on the mound. So I think that she just has to go back to her core and what she knows and what has gotten her this far. And that's just keeping it simple and not trying to do too much or overpower her pitches. And I felt like she really battled through that very well.
Were you a big travel ball player growing up? Were you a part of elite travel ball teams? How much a part of your path to Michigan and then obviously Oklahoma was that for you?
I was actually not a part of any well-known programs. Anyone that I had ever asked, they had no idea what program I played for. I wasn't ranked. I wasn't a part of any highly touted rankings or just big, I guess, tournaments either. I finally got to go out to California my senior year of high school within travel ball. So I really didn't develop like through the big programs a whole ton. Kind of with the luck of just a couple core parts of my travel ball career made it to where I am. And so I'm very thankful for that. But I also think it goes to show that rankings don't mean a lot too. And that you can kind of come from wherever and be a big player too.
Well, to follow up on that train of thought, how big of a jump then was, high school, the experiences that you had with some travel ball, and then into Michigan, into Oklahoma? How big of a jump was it for you? And with that, in Ella Parker, a Pickering, in Oklahoma, it's like every year there's a new freshman that comes in and lights the world on fire. How impressive is that in your mind?
Yeah, for me, it was a huge jump. I know going into the freshman year, the game just speeds up on you a lot at sometimes, especially defensively, I would say, as well as you're 18 years old going into college. And now in this day and age, you have 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds pitching against you that have kind of crafted their pitching and their abilities for quite some time now. And so when you see the level of just maturity and composure within Ella Parker as well as Cassidy Pickering, it kind of just amazes you. And I think also just coming from the big programs that they do come from, that is maybe a helping stone in all of that. But that's also why a big part of, from what I know, they are always asking questions. They're always wanting to get better. And I think that just stems from them as people, as well, of just wanting to be at the level the rest of the team is. And when you have that kind of feedback from your core players that have been in the program for so long, you know that Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering are going to be big impacts from the jump. And they've absolutely shown that in the past few weekends.
For each of those two, what have you seen so far?
I just obviously the results, but then also though too, when things don't go their way, maybe as a strike or at the plate or defensively, whatever it is, there's no frustration. And I think probably, I'm sure it's internal or maybe when they get back to the dugout, but when they're able to not show that maybe to the other team or to the pitcher, I think that's a big part of their game too. And when you have a freshman that's giving results like that, it's hard to come by when they don't get their way or they're not producing in that way. And so that's what I mean when I talk about that composure and that maturity. And you have players like Jada Coleman, Tiare Jennings, and Kinsey Hansen talking nothing but praise about them. I mean, that is just unreal to even think about.
Tiare, I'm glad you mentioned her name. Is it time to go ahead and start the National Player of the Year conversation?
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? Tiare Jennings is just, it feels like a lifetime player, but when she's surrounded by so many greats within her career in this year, of so many greats, it feels like it's just common knowledge that every year there's a lifetime talent on OU softball. To see her being able to show off, I know this weekend was huge for her and her family. Her younger sister Tele was a part of the Mary Nutter as well, and just kind of have that experience under her belt. And for me too, as a fan and as a former player, it just kind of felt like at times, kind of leading up to the weekend, she was pressing, and then I look back at results and I'm like, it really doesn't feel that way. She really just doesn't maybe come up with the big ball a lot, but when she really makes contact and she is able to produce and have the amount of RBIs and the consistency that she does, you just are kind of blown away because she kind of does it subtly and you don't expect it. And then all of a sudden she makes the headline for herself. I mean, I know in one of the games she missed the cycle by a triple, which is probably the hardest in my opinion, but she's able to do that and just be so fun to watch. And I'm so excited to see her just continue to grow and continue to be brought up in even that conversation this year, and just have fun while doing it. I know it's her last year and she's taking in every moment. And I think fans should do that too, because Tiare is just a player you don't get to see a lot.
She's so good. I mean, it's unreal how good she is. Loves Field. Oh, man, it's finally here. Let's talk about it. Next, plus the OU tournament. We'll preview it on our way out the door right here on Locked On Sooners. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. That's America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Already some college football numbers out there for Oklahoma. The Sooners 9.5-point underdogs, if you like that number, versus Texas. The over-under win total from FanDuel Sportsbook right now for Sooner football in 2024 is 7.5. So if you feel like Oklahoma's winning at least 8 in that inaugural season in the SEC, well, now is the time. FanDuel.com/lockedon to shoot your shot. That's FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Well, we've all been waiting a long time for this. It's one of those moments where is it really this week that Love's Field is opening? Because it's like Christmas Day or something. You've been waiting for it so long, but now finally we get to go find out what's under the Christmas tree. Love's Field, just generally speaking, how excited are you for this?
I'm so pumped, and I just can't wait to see the fan excitement, the players. I feel like this is one of the first times you'll see the players really look around and take it all in instead of kind of ignoring that outside noise. So I'm excited to see all of that. And just truthfully, as I was a fan this weekend, hear Boone for the first time as a stadium, just cheer her on too. I can only imagine how it'll be with 4,000 plus fans surrounding the field, and just taking the game to literally the next level from Marita to Loves, and just kind of see who gets just the first of everything at this new stadium. I mean, I feel like the anticipation is just too much for in this week, honestly, because I keep driving by and I'm like, there's no way they get it done. There's no way they get it done. And so I too, and I can't believe that it's this Friday, and I'm just so pumped to be there.
Have you gotten to poke around much at all at Love's Field?
I mean, I got to poke around a little bit in the fall as I was a part of kind of the Sooner Club and giving some tours. But when I tell you that was literally just the bone structure and maybe some outlines, that was kind of it. And so my drive-bys have been the closest I can be is hopefully catching a red light over off of Jenkins and being able to look around a little bit more. So I'm so excited to really see it develop. And I feel like it's also a unique experience that the fans kind of get to see the added details as they go back each weekend to experience Loves and watch Oklahoma softball play there within the next month or two.
It's so awesome. It's going to be, if you want to say, the seventh wonder of the softball world. I mean, it really is going to be that. And Oklahoma softball, I think, no doubt has rightfully earned that. Oklahoma has this intimidation factor at this point about it. And how could you not? Love's Field, do you think that it'll play into that mystique?
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind, because I feel like when you walk up, I'm sure if you drive by, you're like, oh, it's definitely bigger than Marita. But then knowing that the field is kind of dug into the ground and it's really built up around it, I feel like as teams get there, they'll definitely kind of be in that wow factor. And then also, oh crap, we have to play a game in here against OU with everyone going for Oklahoma softball and very little fans going for us. So I feel like it only adds to just the whole scheme of playing Oklahoma softball.
As a player, when you're a part of Oklahoma, do you feel that presence that you impose upon an opponent? Did you feel that as an Oklahoma Sooner?
I feel like it's not something that you're like walking around puff chested. You just are taught to carry yourself in such a great manner. Coach has always, been a huge advocate for, eyes up, chest up, head up, and having a presence that when it comes down to game time, it's so natural that maybe you don't feel like that you're carrying a presence about you. And I feel like that's also why Oklahoma might be so intimidating, is that it's truly not an act. It's how we're taught to play the game and be people even outside of the diamond, and just having that kind of way of carrying yourself when you walk into a room, when you walk into a restaurant, when you walk into a building. Everyone kind of looks at you in a different way because you know that you carry some sort of presence with you.
By the way, having Alex STORAKO in the circle and Jada Coleman and Tiare, and we could go on and on all day. That doesn't hurt either. But what do you make of the field, just in closing here, Alex? Always fun to hang out with you on Locked On Sooners. Follow her on the socials, X, formerly known as Twitter, at Alex STORAKO. But Miami of Ohio, Liberty, Louisiana, coming to Norman for the grand opening of Love's Field. What do you make of the group of teams that are coming to the OU tournament?
I'm actually really excited about these couple of teams. I know last year we played Liberty, we played Miami of Ohio, and they were truly some good competition. Miami brings a little bit more of the bats to the table. They're a big slugging team. They have a lot of home runs on the season so far, and I think their pitching might hurt them a little bit. So I'm excited to see how our pitching staff does against that kind of lineup. I think Liberty brings a lot to the table, and Louisiana is another great team. They have a good pitching core within Sam Landry, and having that just ability of really kind of having the schedules thus far and playing some bigger games. And so maybe kind of tacking down the intimidation factor that Loves or Oklahoma might bring, because I know these programs are very, very well versed in a lot of those things. So I'm excited for the slate of games, and I can think of a couple of pair of better programs to bring into the opening of Loves Field.
I can't wait to hear the stories that fans have and just to watch all of this unfold. It's going to be awesome, not only this week, but now going forward as this new palace on the prairie, right, for Oklahoma softball. Pretty cool. Alex, appreciate your time as always. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
Thank you so much.
And until next time, everybody, I'm Josh Elmer for Alex, for John, and we'll see you next time here on Locked On Sooners.